Hello everybody and welcome to Titanic, Honour and Glory. In today's video we are going to take a look around a 3D virtual recreation of the RMS Titanic. The history surrounding the Titanic is something that I've always been fascinated and mystified with ever since I was a child. I would always read books and look at videos on YouTube and conspiracy theories and things like that, and it's really cool that these guys who created this game have put as much effort into recreating the Titanic as they have. They're using source photos and just putting as much detail and making it as much of a virtual replica as they can. As you can see, this is just a demo, and as such there are no NPCs or anything like that, so I thought it would be really fun for us just to kind of explore the ship together whilst it's empty in the areas that are available to us in the demo. The whole ship isn't available to explore in this demo. It's mostly just a few of the first class areas and a little slither of third class as well. And I'm just really excited to show this to you today. The game, when it comes out, I'm not sure when that is going to be. I think they said sometime in 2018, but when you do play the full game, obviously you get to explore the whole ship, all of its areas, and there's a story that goes alongside it, and you get to experience the actual voyage. You get to experience each day, and then obviously you get to experience the tragic sinking in real time, and you're able to find your own ways off of the ship or continue on with the story that the game kind of goes along with. So as we walk around the game today, this demo, you're going to see info boxes popping up, and I'm just going to read those to you as we're wandering around. It's just a really relaxed video that I wanted to do because I haven't been doing many videos lately. I've been finding it quite difficult to record. I'm not quite sure why. I've just been finding it not every time I could go and do it. It's not something I've been wanting to do, and I only want to make a video for you guys if it's something that I want to do, because then it's going to be the best quality that it can be. So I knew that this would be something that would be really fun for us to do together. So sit back, relax and enjoy as we walk around the RMS Titanic. So first of all, we just entered from the gangway. At the moment the ship is still in Belfast, and in the timeline of the game and in real life, I think this is supposed to be about 2 or 3 days before the ship sailed, before the guests would come on board. And in the purpose of this demo, we are playing a ship inspector who is going to look around the ship and meet with some shipboard personnel, I think, just to talk to them about the ship and give his opinion. So some of you might know that I worked on cruise ships myself, so it's interesting to me to kind of see how the layout of the ship is and things like that. So here we go. Through these doors, passengers from the tenders at Cherbourg and Queenstown would board the Titanic. Others would disembark at these locations. The first class Cherbourg tender, the Nomadic, is the last remaining ship built for the White Star Line and is currently preserved in Belfast, Northern Ireland. It's one thing that I didn't know until really recently, is that the Titanic actually stopped once it had left Southampton. I think it stopped somewhere in the Channel, and I think it stopped somewhere at the top of France. It must have been Cherbourg. And it also went to a place in Ireland as well, which I guess it's Queenstown, I guess. It's me being stupid. Yeah, so I didn't know that it stopped before it was supposed to obviously make its way to New York. I found that really interesting. So we're just walking towards the elevator lobby for D-Deck right now, and a little blocked off hallway where I assume that would be some cabins of some sort, and tells you there that there's a ladies' bathroom down that corridor. First class elevator foyer. I don't know if you guys have had any snow yet, but it's snowing outside, which is extremely unexpected and just a little bit surprising, really. I haven't seen snow in ages, so it's quite weird because obviously I've been working in the Caribbean for a couple of years, so it's quite alien, really. So, through these doors, first-class passengers boarded the Titanic at Southampton. These doors were ordered opened by Second Officer Lightoller during the sinking with the intention of loading lifeboats through them. However, no lifeboats actually rowed to them, and they only, in the end, hastened the flooding of the ship. It's quite sad to think, isn't it? So this is the Southampton boarding gangway. I recognise this particular part from the movie. The D-Deck reception room. In this room, first-class passengers would meet before entering the dining saloon for dinner. After dinner, tea and light fare would be served as the orchestra played tunes of the day. There is one of the 6 grand pianos on board, and a view outside of Belfast and Ireland. This is a French tapestry woven by Aubusson, I think, for the White Star Line, based on the Chadiguise series. That's my British accent butchering French pronunciation for you. Sorry. And here's something that I feel most of you who've seen the movie or who have seen images of the Titanic would recognise: the first class dining room, which is insanely large. It's crazy to think how big this place is. Look. So the first class dining saloon. Meal service in the first class dining saloon was included in the price of a first class ticket. On Sunday mornings, the room would be used for religious services. During the sinking, the saloon was being set for breakfast. You've got the little menus and everything, and the cutlery laid out in the way that they would be. I think this is as far as we can go. Yeah. Now, I have walked around the ship before, and I will say that even though it's not large in comparison to the ships that I've worked on, it's still really confusing, and I still don't know my way around, and I think I've probably toured the ship about 5-6 times, so bear with me, but we're going to go downstairs first to E deck. And I thought that we'll go this way first and go down to the Turkish baths and swimming pool, and then we'll come up and then we'll go through here, which is Scotland Road. It shows the crew dormitories and the third class dining saloon, and then we'll go back up to first class and look at the rooms up there. So down here on F deck is the lowest deck of the grand staircase. There are no first class cabins on this deck, and apart from the floor of the squash court, no first class facilities below this deck. This way to the plunge pool, a watertight door is beyond this door. So this is a cooling room, which is also the Turkish bath. The Turkish bath hours are as follows. Available for ladies from 10 a.m. until 1 p.m. Available for gentlemen from 2 until 7 p.m. Tickets are obtainable at the inquiry office. The swimming baths will be open for gentlemen from 6 a.m. until 9 a.m. and for ladies from 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. and for ladies and gentlemen respectively during the day at the same hours as the Turkish bath, free of charge. It's a bit of a mouthful, that sentence. So this is beautiful, and I don't think it was ever shown in the movies, and I didn't really know much about it until I saw this. So the Turkish bath cooling room is a richly appointed room where passengers would go to cool off after a rigorous bathing process. These false portholes covered by Cairo curtains became leftover decor elements after Titanic's Turkish bath layout was changed from the Olympics design, with this room being moved inboard. So obviously on the Olympic, the Turkish baths were on the outside of the ship, so you would, through the portholes would be the ocean, whereas in this case there's a room behind there instead. There's changing rooms in there, there's nothing interesting. I'm just going to speed up my camera movement because it's really annoying me. Okay, there we go. So this little contraption here is really interesting because it's a weighing machine that was used by passengers to compare weights before and after a session in the baths to see if they were able to sweat any weight off. And a banana and a bottle of licorice and something. Bottle of licorice, I mean bottle of whiskey. Bloody hell. So in here there's an electric bath and there's a person in there who's supposed to be Joseph Ismay, I believe. Bruce Ismay, sorry. And then through here is the swimming pool, which isn't filled yet. Go back up the stairs. And let's go into Scotland Road. So Scotland Road is named after a street in Liverpool where many crew of the early White Star Line ships lived. Scotland Road is the main access passage for crew and third class passengers. It ran the length of the ship along the port side, although in the demo there's only the middle portion featured. So anyone that has worked on a ship or has been on a ship in America, there's a place like this which runs through the whole of the ship through the middle called the I-95. And that's the area for the crew to travel through the ship. What's interesting about this is that as well as the crew, the the third class passengers travelled down here as well. The crew dormitories were ironically referred to as glory holes by crewmen of the time due to their often terrible conditions on other ships. These rooms were full of bunks where most of the crew called home for the duration of the voyage. And they look a lot different to crew cabins that I stayed in, which are usually 2 to a cabin. Some boiler rooms down here. There were 6 boiler rooms, I think. Or maybe 8. 6 or 8. And just see here, you can get a view of the boiler rooms and how far down it goes. And then you can see up. And then over here we've got one of the dancing areas that you would have seen in one of, I don't know if it's the one, but I think it's one of them, the entertainment areas for the third class passengers where they would, you know, dance on the stage and play music and stuff like that. Through here we've got the steward's lavatory, which is one of several large lavatories for the use of the crew to bathe, relieve themselves and wash. What's funny to me is I feel like in this kind of time period, even lower class looking, to me, like even lower class areas still had like a grandness about them. Like the tiles always looked kind of nice, and it's funny to me. You wouldn't see a crew bathroom like that nowadays. Okay, so down here is the third class, well, section of the third class dining room, which is insanely large and quite surprising because, as you can see here, is where primarily single men or men travelling in groups would dine. As a safety precaution, single men were segregated from families, women and children and were quartered in the forward section of the ship. So all of this, which is quite big, as you can see, all of this, all of it, it's huge, was for single men. And, you know, well, men in groups and single men, single blokes. And then obviously in the forward part of the ship would have been another one for the families and women and children. It's crazy to think. I'm also using a controller for the first time. I'm trying to get good controller sounds because it's one of my favourite tingles is listening to this kind of controller sound. So I'm hoping my microphone will pick them up. Okay, so let's go out of Scotland Road. Down there are some more cabins, it's just a few of them, and Molly Brown, the unsinkable Molly Brown's cabin is down there. So back on D-deck with the dining room and the reception room. Let's get to C-deck, which has the purser's office, or the inquiry office as it was called. Here passengers could purchase wireless telegrams, store valuables, purchase tickets for the Turkish bath and other shipboard activities, and request assistance and information. And as you can see down that corridor are a lot of cabins. Apparently here, look, the clock will be set backward at midnight 49 minutes. So daylight savings was going on whenever this particular day is set. I think it was April the 10th this day is supposed to be. Some more elevators. And what looks like a radiator, but I'm not sure. Probably a radiator. Okay, let's go up first. It's a very dapper looking gentleman, giving some side eye. Looks like one of those paintings that you think would follow you around the room. So this area is closed off to us, but it's the B deck boarding entrance. You can get a little view of the boarding entrance there. Smoking in the companionways is strictly forbidden. Here we get a little view of some of the elevators. I wish we had elevators like that nowadays with a chair in them and everything. It'd be fancy. And if we go up to A deck, you can't go through A deck, but these stairs led up to the grand staircase landings of A deck and the boat deck, as well as the lounge, reading room, writing room, and the gymnasium. So when the full game is released, obviously we'll get to see the beautiful grand staircase, the main section that we all know, up there, and get to explore those areas as well. Through here are staterooms B51 to B101 ODD. And these staterooms here, the Cardazes, are the staterooms that, if you've seen the movie, that Rose stayed in, with the, not just the bedroom, they've got the extended living area as well. From what I can gather from walking around, if you had a regular first class cabin, it was just the bedroom. And then there were bathrooms dotted around the ship. So Mrs. Charlotte Wardle Cardeza and Miss Anna Ward stayed in here, bringing with them 14 steamer trunks, 4 suitcases and 3 crates of baggage. I'm not gonna... Wow, that's a lot. Mr. Thomas Drake Cardeza, the son of Mrs. Cardeza, in this cabin here. Mr. and Mrs. Arthur Ryerson returning to America due to the sad news of the death of their eldest son, Arthur Jr. Miss Suzette Ryerson and Miss Grace Scott, daughter of the Ryersons and governess. Miss Victorine Chaudanson, maid to Mrs. Ryerson. Master John Ryerson and Miss Emily Ryerson, son and daughter of the Ryersons. Mr. and Mrs. Charles M. Hayes, General Manager of the Grand Trunk Pacific Railway. Mr. and Mrs. Thornton Davidson, daughter of Charles Hayes, athlete and co-owner of the Canadian brokerage house. Miss Anne Perot, maid to Mrs. Hayes. Lucy Noel Martha and Miss Gladys Cherry, philanthropist, suffragette, and the Countess of Rhodes, travelling with her cousin. Miss Roberta Mayonnaise, maid to the Countess. And that's all of the cabins on this side that have been listed so far. There are more down below and on the other side of the ship, which we'll look at when we go back. So this is the aft section of the ship on B deck, and there's another little reception room here which is called the Palm Room by the passengers, and they enjoyed after dinner music from the ship's trio and had coffee and refreshments. Let's go up to A deck and then we'll work our way back down. So here is Francis Brown until he disembarked in Queenstown, Ireland. Like I said, they disembarked in Ireland and Cherbourg, which I was already surprised at. And I feel like he would have been maybe a crew member or something, because he's got this little off cabin here. So like I said, it's got a sink in it and 2 beds. Still large, but obviously not as large as the staterooms that we saw in the movie that we kind of know to be the first class stateroom look. Out here there's a little preview of the promenade deck, which we can't go out on yet, but obviously like I said, when the game is fully released, that will be there. Here is the Still Off Limits first class smoking room, which is a retreat for men to smoke, drink, gamble and talk business amid an atmosphere of smoke and mahogany inlaid with mother of pearl. Sounds very regal. I love the stained glass windows through there, they're beautiful. What I like about this demo as well is that they've made it apparent that the ship isn't done yet, so there's crates everywhere and paint and unfinished things, which is quite fun too. And there's the aft version of the dome that we all know so well from the movie. So this is a smaller clock, obviously, because it's the aft section. The grand clock that we saw and know is in the forward, but we can't go and see that yet because it's still off limits. And then over here is Thomas Andrews, who is a well-known name, the ship builder. This is his bedroom. He's got the ship plans laid out still. Obviously he's having a look and going over things before the ship sets sail. It's another view of the promenade deck. To the lounge and deck pantry. I think the lounge is in here, yeah. It's the lounge. Passengers could gather to read, have refreshments, play board games and socialise in a room resembling a great palace in France, which I don't think I've ever seen before, so when that's completed it will be interesting to look. Okay, let's go back down to B deck. And over here is one of my favourite places on the Titanic, which is the Café Parisien. And it was designed to resemble a patio cafe in France, complete with artificial vines and windows open to the sea air. Passengers could relax and order tea and pastries served by authentic French waiters who were indeed actually Italian, which I find to be quite funny. So you can imagine just sitting here while the ship is sailing through the ocean, enjoying some tea and some pastries, while you're served food by Italians posing as French people, which is quite funny. And then there's a little recess for coats and hats. Now in here is really interesting to me. I didn't even know until I played this that there was a second dining room for the first class guests. And if you paid extra money, you could have all of your food in this 120 seat dining room, and you could order food from a certain time of day, which is here. Unlike the first class dining saloon on D deck, dining in this restaurant is not included in the standard pass passenger ticket. For an added fee, passengers may order food from a menu at any time between 8 a.m. and 11 p.m. So I think I read that the most prestigious first class guests are the ones that would obviously get the tickets for this particular area. Like Bruce Ismay and people like that. Through there is the pantry for this dining room. And what's funny to me is, even though like I said, I've worked on cruise ships for a few years, and they're so much larger than this, you know, some of those ships can hold 5,000, 4,000 guests, you know, but none of them seem to kind of match the grandeur and kind of sense of scale that this ship does. Okay, and we're going to go back through here, and I'm going to read these passengers off to you, and then we are going to come to a close. I might go downstairs and read some more names for you before. So here we've got Mr. Alexander Kearns, who is the manservant to Mr. Carter, who I imagine is... No. Where is he staying? I don't know. Somewhere. Mr. Carter's staying somewhere. So this is Mr. Benjamin Guggenheim, which is a great name, and Mr. Victor Giglio, the son of the wealthy mining magnate, travelling home with his valet. His mistress, Leontine Obar, stayed in a different room, obviously to dispel chat from the first class guests. Miss Lurette Elise, maid to Mrs. Spencer, who is staying here. Mr. and Mrs. Augustus Spencer, and Mr. Augustus Spencer was a famous opera singer. Master Jack Odell and Miss Kate Odell, cross-channel passengers, friends of Francis Brown. Mrs. Lily Odell, the daughter probably. Mr. Richard May and Mr. Stanley May, cross-channel passengers, also friends of Francis Brown. Mr. Quig Edmund Baxter, he helped organise the first hockey tournament in Paris. He's travelling home to Canada with his secret lover, Berthe Manet, hidden from his mother and sister. Interesting. Miss Helene Baxter and Mrs. Mary Douglas, a wife of the Canadian diamond broker and banker, and her daughter. Oh, there's Mr. Okay, it's Joseph Bruce. Okay, there we go. I was wrong. He's the managing director of the White Star Line. And that's all. This is also his stateroom. So he's got this long section all the way here, and a sitting room as well. Let's go back down. See, now I'm getting confused because I can't remember where I've been. Let's go down here. Stateroom C55 to C121ODD. So you've got the Strausses' sitting room and their servant, John Farthing. Ellen Bird, who's the maid to Mrs. Strauss, and she's staying in this cabin here, which you can get a little view of. I like how the light switches say on or glow. So Isidore and Ida Strauss, who are the co-owners of Macy's department store. Nellie Bassett, who is a maid to Mrs. White, where is she? Melvina Cornell, Charlotte Appleton and Caroline Brown, three sisters travelling home from their fourth sister's funeral. Can we go in? Nope. Victor and Maria Penasco. There we go. Penasco. I forgot how to do the accent on the end for a second, which is shameful because I studied Spanish for ages. Penasco. Oh gosh. Raymond Arthur Gavatia previously survived the sinking of the ship America, and he spent 40 years recovering from the trauma. Titanic was the first ship that made him feel safe, which is incredibly cruel and ironic because obviously we know. So apparently there's a game called Titanic Adventure Out of Time, and this was the cabin that you stayed in if you've ever played that game. I have not. Hello. Post offices and Marconi offices saloon. The Countess of Rhodes, a noted philanthropist, and Gladys Cherry. I'm sure she's had another room, or did I imagine that? Also, I didn't know these little rooms here were actually cabins, so again, they were bigger cabins for Henry and Irene Harris, who are the directors of the theatre managers in Greater New York. And John and Florence Cummings, the Wall Street stockbroker. So I'm not sure if these cabins would have been any nicer than those ones because of the wood panelling, or if they've just been plopped here in the foyer. Now this is really interesting to me because you don't really think about it, but it makes sense that the maids in obviously this time period, the maids and valets that were travelling with the first class guests wouldn't dine in first class because they were working, you know. They'd have their own dining room, which makes perfect sense, but like I said, I never even thought of before. So they would dine in here, which I can't wait to take a look around. And also really interestingly as well, there's a barber shop on board where you can get some souvenirs as well as having your haircut and a shave. The barber's hours are between 7 a.m. and 7 p.m. For the general convenience of the greater number, passengers are requested not to apply for haircutting or shampooing except between the hours of noon and 5 p.m. And then up here, getting told what to do, I will oblige. Just a lovely view of the wood carving and the gilding on the rail there, and then the beautiful skylight. Down there are some surgeons' quarters and other quarters for different crew members. Samuel and Nella Goldenberg, well-known dog breeders, and Madame de Villiers, the alias of Bertha Monet, a Belgian singer, secretly engaged to passenger Quig Baxter. There's a lot of drama on this ship, wasn't there, in terms of secrets and things like that. Here we've got Dr. Henry and Clara Freudenthal, the doctor in the field of chronic joint diseases. Here is Berth Leroy and Auguste Seraplan, maids to Mrs. Douglas and Mrs. Carter. Walter and Mahala Douglas, the executive of Quaker Oats. I didn't know that Quaker Oats was that old of a company, which is quite interesting to me. Oh, it's down here. Oh, this pantry for the Maid and Valet Saloon. Here we've got Harry Widener. Philadelphia's Widener Memorial Library is apparently dedicated to him. And his servant Edwin Keeping, who housekeeps because his surname is Keeping. George and Eleanor Widener, the Widener University, Philadelphia. Amalie Geiger, maid to Mrs. Widener. Dr. William and Lillian Minahan, with William's sister Daisy, the foremost surgeon in Wisconsin. Here we've got Fletcher Williams, who is the director of the paper cup manufacturer, which I think is an incredibly cool thing to be like, I'm the director of this. I created paper cups. Or maybe he didn't create paper cups, but yeah. And then also paper related is Elmer and Juliet Taylor, who introduced paper food containers to England. Here is Herman Kleber. We don't know much about him. Charles and Annie Stangl. Oh, there's more down there. Margaret Fleming, maid to Mrs. Thayer. Jack Thayer. John and Marion Thayer, the VP of Pennsylvania Railroad. Walter Chamberlain Porter, which is a super fancy name and I love it. John Edward Maguire, super fancy too. Not as fancy, but still fancy. Adolf Saalfeld, a chemist and perfume salesman. Major Arthur Peuchen, the Commodore of the Royal Canadian Yacht Club. And here we are back on sea deck. So with that, everybody, I think I am going to finish up this virtual tour of the Titanic. I hope you enjoyed it. When the game is fully released, I might do a playthrough, or because the ship will be open, I might do a walkthrough of the sections that we haven't done already. So second class, the rest of third class, crew areas and other things like that, which will be pretty fun to do. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I will see you guys again soon. Have a great day. Goodbye, everybody.